All Excess with Danny Zalesko and Tim Richards.
So the podcast is named after the book because our plan is to either come up with some new adventure stories with new people. Mainly, we're going to talk to people who are in the book, but there'll be people we talk to who aren't. You know how you're going to find out how you're in here in a very funny way. But we got to talk about. I want to talk about who you are, and about ATI and later adventures. But I want to. The early story is your hand that you didn't even know about of how you were involved in my early bookings.
Did I book bands? I didn't know that.
You know, once upon a time, you sure did.
Okay.
And I don't even know. I mean, we don't need to do the exhaustive version of it, but I have no idea how it started for you. So, I mean, it'll be interesting for me to hear.
Okay. Yeah, I grew up in Dayton, Ohio, and I was not from a wealthy family. And I found out when I was 15 years old that I could make $5 by booking a band. So I started booking bands. And then I went to Ohio State, and I found out you could make a lot more than that by booking 50 bands. And we proceeded to start an agency, I did, at that time, that booked Ohio, Indiana, and Kentucky. We started booking piano players and stuff. I had 2 or 3 guys that worked for me in those days. And we tied up all the party houses to kill the competition. And so if you wanted a band, you either bought it from us and got a party house at one price, or if you wanted to buy it from somebody else, good luck. Your party house price just tripled.
Nice.
That's how
you corner the market.
Right. And I promoted a little bit, but that was never something I enjoyed as much. I then quit for a year. I was in a club that I owned in Columbus when I went to Ohio State called the Sugar Shack. And that's where I found Bob Seger. And it turned out a guy called me and he said to me, what are you doing? I said, nothing. I just quit. I was working in retail for a year. It's not me. I'm back doing what I want to do. He said, why don't you come to work for us in New York? He was working in a company called Action Talents. And I said, oh, that'll be fun. What else I got to do? You haven't got the money you owe me, so what the heck? It was only like a couple $100. So I went to New York, and I had on a pair of brogue shoes and a Glen Plaid suit, and they were paying me $150 a week. And if you got to go to Tad's Steakhouse once a week, you were a star because that was $1.29 steak. So we tended bar at night and we learned to party and we grew up through that. And this agency had wonderful, wonderful star clients. And the way I got the job is I got on the phone the first day and booked more in an hour and a half or 2 hours, knowing nobody around the country than a list they gave me than they had booked in a week. And the star clients were the Lemon Pipers, which I had actually booked because they're from Dayton.
Green Tambourine.
Yep, Green Tambourine. They had Solomon Burke, but so did 20 other people.
Sure.
They had Kubi and the Five Stair Steps. They had the wonderful, unique Ohio Express, 1910 Fruit Gum Company. So on Monday night in Minneapolis, you were the Ohio Express, and on Tuesday night in Minneapolis, you were the 1910 Fruit Gum Company. Made no difference, it didn't matter because it was all studio stuff. And I worked for a woman named Betty Sperber. And the guy who got me the job was a guy named Alan White. And Alan, it turns out, lives in Atlanta. And I saw Alan last year for the first time, and it turned out 50 years.
Oh, my God.
We had lunch. And Alan, we went back through a lot of this. So that's why probably some that's still in my mind today. So we did that, and we then had Betty Sperber decided she should be a manager. And the manager, she found a group she put together called the Brooklyn Bridge, featuring Johnny Maestro, The Worst That Could Happen. And then she did the worst thing she could do, and that was...
The worst thing that could happen.
Yeah, and she proceeded to do the worst thing she could do to me, and that was take the first real act that she had, other than QB and the Five Stair Steps, and she gave it to Herb Spar at Ashley Famous Agency. Well, the problem was I outbooked Herb, and that was the end of that. Herb got mad. And Herb was a dear, dear friend of mine, one of the greatest guys ever as an agent. And a guy worked with him named Chip Racklin, who a lot of people never understood. I'm still friends with Chip to this day.
Me too.
So that's how it pretty much started. Then it turned out the agency, which I didn't know initially, had been funded by Buddha Records, a guy named Neil Bogart. And what happened, they were sold to a public company and had to get rid of this agency. So I stood there and said, okay, I'll buy it. I had no money, but I bought it. So we bought the agency, and we moved out of 1650 Broadway, rock and roll heaven, and we moved to 3 apartments on 8th Avenue. And the company became ATI, which stood for American Talent International, from Action Talents to American Talent. So I knew I wanted to grow it, obviously. So I spent a lot of time signing artists, but I spent time getting agents. So I brought in a guy named Saul Safian. Saul died about 10 years ago, I guess, at this point. And Saul was one of these guys who could book 100 dates, of which maybe 40 were good. But he told you he had 100 dates.
Okay.
So Saul came in, he was a partner. And then Saul brought in, he'd been at Associated Booking, and he realized that Joe Glazer, who was probably one of the greatest agents of all time, and purportedly a mobster, you can take it for what it's worth, was never going to give him the agency. It was going to go to a guy by the name of Cohn instead. So Saul was mad. And Saul brought a guy named Ira Blacker. And Ira and I obviously had issues as time went on, but Ira was really good at finding talent. And I mean, he was excellent at it. And that's how we built it initially. And eventually those guys all left over a 7-8 year period, 10-year period. I bought him out. I'd moved south to California, and business was bad, and I did not want to go out of business. So we bought him out. Blacker found Rush and did not tell anybody he had a piece of it, and that became an issue with me especially. We moved into bigger offices, and the offices were on top of Premier Talent, which was Frank Barcelona. So pretty much between Frank Barcelona and ATI, I would say, and Danny could tell you better than I, we probably had about 60% of all the rock and roll.
Wow.
And our clients went from Neil Young, who's still a dear friend, Bob Seger, Rod Stewart, Rush, Deep Purple, Ozzie Osborn, Yes, Fleetwood Mac. We brought all of this. Ira could lose a client as fast as he could get one. He just was too busy telling everybody what to do. But he was a hell of an agent. And I mean, you've never heard of some of these people. Rory Gallagher, one of the greatest guitar players of all time. Savoy Brown, the greatest second or opening act in history. I mean, the manager didn't know what he was doing, but it didn't matter. It had a name and it worked all the time. Deep Purple was an accident. I got a phone call one morning at 8 a.m. from Joe Smith and Warner's and said, you got to help me. You got to do this tour for me. I said, no problem. And that's how it got built. And, you know, our clients was the ultimate list. So we then realized that we couldn't compete with the ICMs and the William Morrises and those because we didn't have the money to get directors and writers into that business. So I got into cable television. And I got into cable television because Rod Stewart had done a film, had to be sold. Neil Young had done a film. Joni Mitchell had done a film. And you had to sell this stuff. Nobody knew where to sell it. So I found this new thing called HBO. None of my deals ever closed with HBO. But I also found video discs. So what would happen in those days, we'd go to RCA Video Disc and make a deal. Then we go across the street to Panasonic and make a deal. And then we'd walk up the street to a cassette company and make another deal. So we would take a Rod Stewart concert film, for example, and we'd have 4 different people distributing the damn film in 4 different formats. Those days, that stuff went on for a few years. And then I also couldn't get a broadcast place for it. So I ran into a friend of mine by the name of Joe Cohn, who was running Madison Square Garden at the time. We started talking.
Uh-oh.
We lost you, Jeff. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can now. He introduced me to a woman by the name of Kay Koplovitz. And Kay Koplovitz was running a network because no one else could run it. They couldn't find anybody to run it. It belonged to Madison Square Garden, Universal Pictures, and Paramount. And the network today is known as the USA Network. And I made a deal with a guy named Jeff Luenda, who was head of ad sales, and Kay Koplovitz, and nobody knew what they were doing, to be really honest. And we started producing television. And we started with a television series called Night Flight, which ran for 9 years. And Night Flight was on 16 hours a week. It was on about a month before MTV. And all the record companies and MTV got into wars, and everybody was starting to sue MTV. MTV needed somebody to support them. So Bob Pittman made a deal with me to grandfather me into all those contracts. So we didn't have to pay for videos, and everybody else was.
No kidding.
Yeah. So and it was cult television. That's really what it was. It was cult television. And, we ran things like Tom Corbett's Space Cadet, along with the first Michael Jackson stuff. We ran all the R&B when nobody else did. When Michael went on tour the first time, we had to supply the show every week to him. We had unbelievable fans. Then we got into television syndication. And obviously, our artists were always the ones that were being used first and foremost. We were very equal opportunity people. If you were one of Frank's stars, you get used. If you're one of our stars, you really got used. And then, as time went on, I made a big mistake and got involved in producing Broadway for touring. And the theory behind it was, which we did come out on some of them, was to go into bigger buildings and charge $450 to $1,250 for tickets to go into a 4,000 seat building and do them like concert shows. The Odd Couple was successful. Seesaw was a disaster. So, that went goodbye. We recovered from that disaster, which was my fault, and just kept moving on. And then Night Flight grew. We got into television syndication big time in the U.S. We kept signing artists. The business kept changing. I started representing record executives. I was the only agent in town really making record deals. So what happened was I made a record deal, for example, for a guy named something Oliver. He was in a movie. And I did it with a guy named Neil Bogart at Buddha Records. And I took Neil's eyes out. It was the worst deal he ever made. And he hated me. Jack Wild, that was the guy's name. We made the 2 deals, one for Jack Wild and somebody else. I don't remember even. And they were both disasters for Buddha. And Neil wouldn't talk to me. That was it. Over. So it didn't really bother me because basically all he had was a bunch of bubblegum acts anyway. So it wasn't killing me. Then what happened was about 5 years go by, 4 or 5 years. And Neil realized that he had to get out of Buddha Records because it was a disaster financially for him and he was killing himself. And he met a guy and he called this guy and he said, I'd like you to represent me. This guy managed Lou Christie. He said, I'd like you to represent me in making a record deal for me. I want to get out of here. And he said, well, that's well and good. Let me think about it. He said, but there's only one caveat. You got to get Jeff Franklin to do it. He said, okay, I talk to Jeff all the time, but let me see if I can do it. Is there a problem? He said, well, there may be. Guy calls me. He said, Neil Bogart wants to do X, Y, Z. I said, really? I said, he doesn't want me. The man hates me. He said, he won't do this unless you do it. And is it doable? I said, yeah, it's probably doable. So, and I didn't know what the hell I was saying at the time, by the way. Make no mistake about it. I just always said yes. It didn't make any difference. And it turned out the next day I called Neil Bogart like I was asked to, and I said, "What do you want to talk to me about? You hate me." He said, "Because you're the best at what you do." And he said, "I want out of here, and I want you to do it for me, because if you could screw me like you screw somebody else, I'd be very happy." And the one thing that also went on during this period of time was that, and Danny can attest to this, I think probably better, than most people, or as much as most people. I always was an agent that decided an agent is someone who represents his client, but an agent is someone who is in the middle. And if you don't keep your buyers in business, you're not an agent. And it was very important to me to do that. So when the problems would arise from certain other agents, I always had to get in the middle of it. I had no problem picking up the phone and saying, "I want you to lose $50,000. And the guy would say to me, "How can I do that?" I said, "Easy. You're going to get 3 Rod Stewart dates instead of 1. That's that simple. And it wasn't that they were any different, because I knew they'd be promoted properly, and I knew Rod or Neil, whoever it was, liked that promoter.
Sure.
So I always protected everybody. So when I got out of the business, I still kept all my friends all these years.
That's great.
The Michael Coles of the world. There's a guy named Cecil Corbett and Jack Boyle. Most of the Live Nation guys were put in business by Frank and myself to this day.
Did you get that Buddha deal done, by the way?
Pardon me?
Did you get that Buddha deal done?
Well, it wasn't Buddha. So what happened was I went and talked to a couple of record companies, and they were not interested. And then I went and saw my good friend, Joe Smith at Warner Brothers, may he rest in peace. And I made a deal with him and Mo Austin that was one of the biggest disasters Warner's ever made, which became a massive success after we bought our way back out. And to quote Joe Smith, we paid him every penny back he was ever owed, and we started a company called Casablanca Records and Filmworks.
Nice.
That's where Casablanca came from.
No kidding.
Yeah. And when Neil Bogart, may he rest in peace, died, I unfortunately was the last one there with him. And the basic theory was sign with Casablanca, sign with ATI. We'll tour the shit out of you and break the record and break the act. And that's what happened. So, for example, they signed, the Donna Summer stuff came when we were going broke. We found that we found disco. Neil and I, we had mortgaged our houses and everything else to keep the thing in business. We're in Acapulco. We found disco. We put out the Donna record. And he said to me, "I got a problem." I said, "What?" He said, "You can't represent Donna. She's got to go to William Morris." I said, "Really?" We didn't talk for a couple of weeks. I was kind of mad. I get a phone call about a month later, 2 months later. We were talking all the time. We didn't talk about that. And the call was, "We got a problem." "What's your problem?" "We need to tour Donna." "So tour. You got William Morris. You don't need me." "Well, they can't get it booked." I said, "Pardon me?" I said, "They can't get it booked." I said, I said, "How many days you want?" He said, "We need at least 30. I said, "Okay." I said, "In 48 hours, you'll have a tour." He said, "You're kidding yourself." I said, "In 48 hours, you'll have a tour." In 48 hours, they had the tour. I called William Morris and gave it to him.
Wow.
Hey, as Neil said, I own part of Casablanca. And I could call a guy and say, "You're going to lose money because I'm going to cover you." And they knew if I said it, it was going to happen. If I promised you were going to get covered and be able to make money from it, you knew it was going to happen. And that's the way it went down. I mean, there was a lawsuit at one point by a guy by the name of Rick Green in Philadelphia. And he sued all the agencies on a class action. And he sued us because we were selling a guy named Larry Maggot instead of him. And finally got dragged into a deposition. And he's sitting in the room. And I said, "Who are you?" He said, "I'm Rick Green." I said, "Pardon me?" "I'm Rick Green." I said, "You're not Rick Green." He said, "How could you say that?" I said, "Because Rick Green never would have sued me." That was the end of that. That was the end of that deposition. and we got dropped from the case. But those are the things that went on, and we went through a lot of touring, and that's how these bands got broke. So then, as life goes on, I was pretty bored. I was turning 40. I wanted to change my life. Night Flight was doing well. Syndication was going on. I had made a ton of record deals. We were involved. We owned part of Reaver Records with Rod Stewart and Billy Gaff. We had John Cougar on that label. T-Nick Records with the Isley Brothers. I redid that and represented them. I was managing Marvin Gaye. I can just go on and on. And, whether it was Marvin and the problems that went along with that kind of stuff, Bob Seger was my first real client. My first Madison Square Garden client was Rod Stewart. We were the packagers, which is the other part of it. We used to package 3 acts. We didn't make headliners. So we would take 3 acts and put them together, except what I would do is put together a metal act. I'll give you a tour. Rod Stewart, Deep Purple, Savoy Brown. 3 different acts. 3 different kinds of acts, right? Here's the issue. You had Rod Stewart, who's a pop star. He would draw 5,000 people. You had Deep Purple, who was a metal star they didn't know here in this country. They could draw 3,000 to 5,000 people. And Savoy Brown could draw 1,000, 2,000. Long story short, put them in 18,000 seats and you got 18,000 people. Richie Blackmore, about 5 years ago, told me a story. And Richie Blackmore is one of the greatest guitar players in the world. And that was, they were playing in Pittsburgh. And he went up to Rod after the 4th night of this. And he said to Rod, "Have you seen us play?" And Rod said, "No, I go on." He said, "I think maybe you should watch us one night if you want to keep closing." Rod Stewart ain't following Deep Purple. Trust me. Okay, and Rod was a dear friend, a dear client, but Deep Purple was that good. Neil Young said to me one day, he said, "If I'm on a festival and there's 5 acts, I want to go third. I want to get out of here. I don't want to be here when everybody's going to sleep." Whether it was the US Festival, California Jam, Woodstock, all this stuff. These guys learned and we learned from them, and you had to help them through this. So I was coming back from California. I turned 40. Neil Bogart, this was 39 years ago. Neil Bogart had died of cancer at 43, 42, 41, I don't remember anymore. And we had founded a charity called A Day at the Races for USC Children's Hospital Cancer Research, which was part of the T.J. Martell Leukemia Foundation, which was I was one of the guys that founded it. And sitting on a plane, and I'm doing television. I'm tired of the agency. I had some internal strife with a person we'll leave nameless that worked for me, who Danny knows very well, who ended up running a department at ICM. Got it? And nice guy. The problem I had was he didn't understand my philosophy of you have to represent the promoter too. His philosophy was screw the promoter and just take care of the client. Sorry, it didn't work for me. And, the plane, my wife looks at me, she says, "Where are you going?" I said, "The front of the plane." She said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, I'm going up 2 rows and I'm going to sell the agency by the time we get to New York." And she looks at me and she says, "We're 32,000 feet in the air. You must be doing drugs." I said, "I'm not doing any drugs. I'm going to sell it by the time we get off the plane." So I got up, I walked to the front of the plane, and there was a guy sitting there by the name of Marvin Josephson. And Marvin Josephson owned ICM. And what I learned a day at the races, because I had sort of gotten away from a lot of the agency stuff unless people had problems, was that Tom Ross, his head of music, had left and had gone to CAA. He had nobody there, and he lost his music department for the most part. So Marvin and I talked, and 6 weeks later, they owned the touring divisions of ATI. And I became the ultimate consultant. They didn't like me, and I didn't like them.
And That was this 74?
No, this was about, I guess it was about 78 I got married. So it was after I got married. That's about 80, 82, somewhere around there. Actually, I could tell you the date, and I'll tell you why. Because in my office, my massive office, I have, wait a minute, I have the sale document.
Are you serious?
Here it is. I haven't seen this. I just happened to see the book a couple of weeks ago. This was February 4th, 1985.
Wow. That's when they merged?
That's when they bought ATI.
And it became ICM.
It became ICM. And then what happened, we closed the deal, and a dear friend of mine who was just being an asshole, I think he was put up to it by Frank Barcelona, who, by the way, most people never knew. Frank and I were good friends. It's nobody's business.
Didn't know that.
Frank, I know you did. Most people Frank used to think I had his office tapped. And the reason he thought his office was tapped, it was right under mine, his, literally.
Did you?
No, I didn't. Yeah. And what would happen is he'd be booking a tour, and he'd find out that the opening act was an ATI act. And he figured the only way I knew that tour was going out was tapping his office. That's not how it happened. What happened was you go out and block buildings. Premier would go out and block a building in the name of Jethro Tull. We go out and block a building in the name of ATI and then assign the promoter. We knew Jethro Tull was touring, or we knew that Procol Harum was touring, so we just went and put the opening acts on.
That's awesome.
So anyway, we get threatened with a lawsuit by one promoter in the entire country. And it was a dear friend of mine, Barry Fay. And I picked up the phone, and we will not discuss that conversation, but within 48 hours, that went away. So that was that. And then I was consulting. I went into ICM, and I straightened out the music department. And Bill Elson, who was running my music department with a suit and tie on every day, he went in to run it. And Phil Casey, I brought him back. He had worked at ATI many, many years before. He was a big R&B agent. He came back and built their R&B department for him. And that was the end of the story. After 5 years, I was never there. I get a phone call one day. They said, "We need you to come talk to a client." I said, "Well, I can do that. I can be there in about 15 minutes. Well, where are you?" I said, "Well, I'm in my office in Westwood at Franklin Waterman." "What are you talking about?" "We called downstairs." I said, "Yeah, the tie line, it goes right to my office." I hadn't been in the damn place in months. They didn't know who was there. They didn't talk to people. It was, and when we made the deal, Marvin tried to change the deal at 2:00 in the morning, because anybody that thought you had signed contracts with all these artists, they're wrong. You didn't. It was handshakes, it was relationships. And when they tried to change the deal, I said to my lawyer, I said, "Here's what you do." He said, "Are you crazy?" I said, "No, just do what I'm telling you to do." He said, "You don't want to do this." I said, "Oh, yes, I do." He said, "Well, you going to tell me why when you get down here to sign this stuff, they agree to this?" I said, "Sure, I'll tell you." So at 5 in the morning, I went down, signed the papers, the deal was done. I told them what happened. And as time went, and it turned out to be multifold what it originally was supposed to be. Marvin outsmarted himself. A year goes by, and we're having our arguments and our fights and our discussion and whatever. And Marvin says to me, "Listen, we're all getting along now. I want you to come to California for our Christmas party." I said, "Sure, no problem." So I've come out, and we're at Chasen's, and Marvin says, "I want to introduce you to somebody." I said, "Great." He says, "Jerry Parenchio, I'd like you to meet Jeff Franklin." You know who Jerry Parenchio is?
No.
Jerry Parenchio owned a company called Chartwell Artist. Norman Lear and Bud York, and he bought Columbia Pictures with him. He owned Univision. He'd been an agent at Universal. He did the original Ali Frazier fights. Howard Rose worked for Jerry Parenchio. So Jerry said, "What'd you say?" He said, "I'd like you to meet Jeff Franklin." And Jerry looks at me, and I look at Jerry, and I said, "Hi, Jerry, how you doing?" He says, "I'm doing great, Jeff." He says, "You know, Marvin, let me tell you something." He said, "I've known Jeff a long time, and I tried to get him to come run Chartwell, and we just couldn't get it done. And let me tell you something, he will never be your Jeff Franklin. That's not going to happen."
Oh boy.
And Marvin looks at me and looks at him and basically walks away. What happened was, I knew Marvin Josephson was smarter than I was, and I respect the guy. I called Jerry Parecchio and I said, "When you sold him Chartwell, how did he try to screw you?" And Jerry said, "Here's what's going to happen, and here's what you do." And that's what happened, and that's what I did, and I won.
Nice.
So
Classic.
that was that. And then time went by, and I started producing a lot of television, did a lot of international finance television, did about 600 hours of it. We were the first guys to do it. Then we produced Stuart Little, and we produced Casper. We did some big pictures also. And then in the interim of this, I was doing some M&A work. I did, for example, Harvey Comics. I sold it to Universal. I did the Dr. Seuss deal for Universal. You know, they needed somebody to hang into this stuff, and I was friends with all these guys as the years went by because I was self-taught. I wasn't isolated. So anything I wanted to do at ATI, if you were my client, you wanted a movie, I had to go pick up a phone and call some movie guy who didn't know who the hell I was to try and get you in it. That's how it all happened. I mean, you know, it was like Kiss, when Kiss had their breakout record, their opening act was an act that showed up with suits and ties. You know who that act was?
Earth, Wind, and Fire.
No. We represented them too, but who was the act?
Suits and ties.
Mm-hmm. First date in Virginia with Kiss. Nobody wanted to work with Kiss before that. That's another story. But
Talking Heads.
Bob Seger.
No kidding.
They showed up with suits and ties, went out after the show, tore them off, and threw them in the truck, and never wore them again.
That's funny.
So
that's you did do Earth, Wind, and Fire and Kiss though.
Yes, we did. We did Kiss with anybody that we could get to work with them for 5 minutes. Nobody wanted to work with them. And there's a lot of Blue Oyster Cult Kiss days. There were a lot of ZZ Top Kiss days. There were a lot of, which were our artists. I mean, Bill Ham, to the day he passed away, was a dear friend of mine. Kiss was created by Joyce Bogart. Her name was Biowitz at the time, and Bill O'Coin, Neil Bogart, and ATI. It was his creation.
Yep.
And nobody wanted it. So,
you know, you mentioned one of your agents before, and I don't know if you saw this in the book or not, but I told the story.
I haven't read the book because nobody sent it to me.
Because what?
Nothing. Go ahead.
There's a story in there about Sal Safian.
Yeah.
Old Sal sold me my first show in Phoenix, was going to be in April of '74. Herbie Hancock and Weather Report.
But we represented Weather Report.
Well, he booked this show.
Well, I'm sure he did.
Right? So Deep Purple was also booked the same night across town at a place called Big Surf, a water park. Remember Big Surf?
Yeah.
So both dates are booked. Sal calls me up out of nowhere one day and he goes, we got to move the Herbie show. And I said, why? He goes, we have Deep Purple in town the same night.
That's right. He's working for me. We had Herbie Hancock too.
So both acts were on the roster. And I said, I can't think of two acts that are more different. And Sal said, who plays Herbie Hancock in the market? And I said, Katie KB. He goes, who plays Deep Purple? Katie KB. He goes, move the date.
Sal was the best. Sal was a little drunk, great guy, wonderful friend.
Very subtle. But, you know, and the thing that, which I didn't know at the time, and had I told him, I don't know if it would have made any difference, but we moved from April to June, which is suicide in Arizona. You got school in April, no school in June. We lost Weather Report, and I had to, because they were busy. So I booked Herbie by himself in Symphony Hall instead of the Celebrity Theater. So I had 3 strikes. I'm out. We ended up doing decent business, 70-80%, but it would have sold out at the other theater with Weather Report. And it's just the subtle difference of a date change, a theater change, and the band and the show change turned it into a completely different, beast. So I learned from that one. In the same month, I had Mahavishnu Orchestra, and I hired Journey to open without asking the agent. And then I got a call from Elliot Sear's office saying, "Hi, this is us calling to say you're firing Journey from this show." First show outside of the California area. And so I was off to a raucous beginning. How I stayed with it, I'll never know. I mean, because those were 2 incredible punches right there.
As they would say, shit happens.
Shit happens. But, it's one thing when you have shit happening in stride, when you're in the midst of all this and you're doing it every day. But, boy, right out of the box, your first shows are like having that. And Seger was the first arena show I bought, and that was from Peter Russo.
Who worked for me. Yeah, it was our show.
I mean, the world revolved around your company and Frank's. I mean, there was no CAA. William Morris wasn't booking this kind of stuff.
No, I see him had a little bit. Tom was at APA originally. They had a little bit. It was basically, and Chip and Herb, but once Herb passed away, they lost it.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing they had, the biggest act I think at that point was probably Santana, which came from the agency that Graham started, that Herb ran. It ended up at Ashley. I think that's the way it went, something like that. But they had nothing, so that's really where it was. If you wanted a tour, that's what you had to do. If
you wanted to promote shows, if you didn't have ATI or Premiere, you might as well not try. And it wasn't easy breaking in there either. With the level of talent that was at both places.
I just lost you guys somehow.
We can hear you, but we can't see you.
Yeah, I'm trying to get you back. That's okay. You don't need to see me. You need to see me?
Yeah, we like seeing you.
I'm trying to I don't know how you get it back.
You must have hit the cam thing.
I hit something.
Are you on your phone?
Yes.
Do you want to just disconnect and then jump right back in again with that same link?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
Oh, that's easier. Okay, I'll do that.
Come on back.
We'll be right here.
Okay.
It's interesting hearing him talk about how he made sure that he had good relationships with the promoters as well as the talent.
I was gonna mention him. He mentioned a guy named Bill Elson that wore a suit and tie to work.
Here I am.
I'm gonna bring that up. There he is. I'm gonna
Here.
grab something to drink real quick. You guys, I'll be right back.
So Jeff, I'm going to read a quote from you.
Uh-oh.
No, it's actually a good one. I was reading an old Billboard article from 1980. Do you remember this article at all?
I don't remember yesterday. No, what?
Okay.
No.
Well, you definitely had some foresight and some vision. And this is the quote that I found interesting. People talk about video disc, but I just don't see it. Cable and video cassettes, it's where it's going to be. And you were right.
Well, the reason was that we were in cable at that point. And video disc, even though it was the best quality, you will not find better quality of music or anything on video disc. Panasonic didn't know how to sell it. And RCA had a disc machine. It was like a record. You put it in, and it took it out and played it. It didn't have the quality and the level. Neil Young fought Spotify and all those for years. He had his own.
Yeah.
He created. It's got to do with the sound. And that's why it wasn't going to work. People couldn't afford it. It was overpriced. And tape was cheap.
Right.
And that's why it worked.
Yeah.
So
well, and you're jumping into cable when you did. I mean, your timing was impeccable.
It was lucky. I had no place to put this stuff, and I found these people, and they needed programming. And that's how it started. We went in a straight 50-50 joint venture. They couldn't sell enough advertising, and I got them to start selling PIs, where we were splitting the income.
Yeah, yeah.
And the next thing you knew, it went through the ceiling.
That's amazing.
So that's how it happened. But, you know, things happen. It's like, look, John Cougar, which is another story in itself. And we're not going to get into my feelings there.
I have a couple of those myself.
Yeah, well, mine are worse than yours, believe me.
Bet.
And
can I just make a comment, by the way?
Uh-huh.
I just hope the guy's happy.
The guy will never be happy. But
Yeah.
what happened was Billy Gaff spent $3 million on John Cougar. $3 million, which today would probably be 30, 40.
Sure.
Nobody wanted to make a record deal. I made the record deal.
Main Man.
No, it went to Mercury. Went to Mercury Records. By the time their attorney at that time got done screwing around, he blew the deal. So I flew back to New York from LA one night on a red eye. And I sat with a guy named Erwin Steinberg, who was president of Mercury. Rod had been on Mercury. I knew Erwin. I knew all these people. And I said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do with you. You're going to do the Cougar deal. We can't do it. You're going to live up to it. We can't do it. I said, yes, you are. Here's how you're doing it. You're taking the second album. I'm giving you the first album on a straight royalty basis, and we're closing the deal. And that's what happened.
Wow. And that record had some songs on it.
That had the songs, yeah. That's the record that started. You know, so you go through these different things. I mean, Walter Yetnikoff, when he was at CBS, you know, Walter was wonderful. Walter was crazy. But if you needed something, whether you were in the company or out of the company, if you were a friend of the company, he would step up and do anything for you. So would a guy named Ronald Luxemburg, who ran Epic. He signed Michael Jackson there. You know, it's like I tried to sign Meatloaf. I couldn't get Meatloaf. His manager was David Sonnenberg. He comes back to his office one day at 5 o'clock, and there's a 20-pound meatloaf in his office with a chef. This is stuff we did. You know, this stuff doesn't go on anymore.
It doesn't.
Hey,
It's all business. There's nobody's having the same level of fun.
Yeah, Tom Ross. Nobody understood it. Tom Ross and I were extremely close friends.
I don't want to forget about this question I have. I was talking to somebody yesterday about this, and this topic has been coming up, and I'm glad it's coming up, which is about how easy it is to make your own music these days and how easy it is to be seen on YouTube and all the rest of that. And I asked the same person who was talking to me about this, how easy of a time would the Beatles have had without George Martin as their producer or Brian Epstein as their manager? Because nowadays, these kids and the groups that are out there, there's some really talented people. There's nobody there to grab the reins anymore. Nobody cares.
You know what? I agree and disagree.
Okay.
I agree there's nobody there in general to build a career. Okay? There's a difference between having a hit and building a career. When you go back to the days of the Crest and the Dovells, they never had managers. They never really had managers. They had the fifth kid on the block. And, you know, the fifth kid on the block was good for 5 minutes.
So they get their head out and die.
Yeah, and you know it was an insane time. Then you got managers who started to create things. Look, Aerosmith, whether you love Lieber Krebs or not, I've had my issues over the years, but the truth is they did a great job with him. Billy Gaff did an amazing job with Rod Stewart. Whatever happened between the two of them happened. Of course, the agent always gets fired at the same time. He did an amazing job with Cougar. The guys that had Deep Purple originally did a great job. So, you know, it all comes down. Then the crap starts and the egos start. So it's not so much fun. And these people don't know who clients are. I mean, let's be honest. When you look at Foreigner, there's not an original person in Foreigner. They still saw 10, 12,000. He's not in it. He's not in it.
He comes to my shows.
Oh, well, congratulations. You're lucky because you must get him late or something. But the truth is,
talking about Lou?
Foreigner. There's no original. It's not one original. There's not one.
Mick Jones.
Oh, Mick Jones. Got it.
Yeah, there's not one original person in there. The music business this year.
Mick owns the name, but he doesn't show up at dates hardly ever anymore.
Right. The music business this year is up $1.5 billion. $1.5 billion. There's a trade. I don't know if you get it or not. Somebody got me to start getting. It's called Music Business Worldwide. You should get it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you just go online. They send it to you every day. It's no subscription. It's free, but it tells you a lot of stuff that you'd like to see. What's going to happen? I got some really serious thoughts about what I think is going to happen.
Let's hear them.
I think that Danny and will like what I'm going to say about the concert business. I think that the concert business is going to have problems that no one wants to deal with yet. I think that problem is going to be that you've got all these dates, not so much Danny in this position, that have been moved around and extended. Therefore, by extending the dates, which I never knew previously, by the way, you don't have to return ticket money. And that ticket money has been locked up for a year. And you're going to take an act that's going to go into, let's say, Orlando, and it's getting paid, let's say, $1 million. Act's looking to take $1 million out midnight. It's not going to happen. Because they're not going to, Orlando's a bad place because Florida's open. But they're not going to put 100% of the people in business. They're going to cut these buildings down to 30 to 50% when it comes back. When this thing starts back, those buildings are going to get cut 30 to 50%. So now you're going to say to that act, hey, we got a contract, we got this, we moved your show. The act's going to say, well, what do you want to do? So we got to work 2 days. The act's going to say, I'm not doing that. Because economically, they really can't. The cost of these tours are so expensive now. They walk out with a lot of money and the prices. But if you look at Live Nation's numbers, they're not great. Their money is primarily made at Ticketmaster.
Yeah.
So, it's made at Ticketmaster. And these buildings, you go into a building and you're a promoter and you guarantee a building 20 shows and you're supposed to get a rebate, which is not a big one, but it's a small rebate, which you're damn well entitled to, which amortizes your year, and you're going to be there. It's a real problem.
It's going to
and
be a real
you're not
problem.
going to have enough buildings for all these tours that have been canceled to extend to 2 to 3 days in cities. The Rolling Stones were just moved again from May to September. The problem is, and you can talk to Paul Gongaware, who's honest, integrity, dear friend of mine. Mick needs 3 days off between shows. So how are you going to do all this in the next year? It's not going to happen. Yeah. It's just going to be a disaster. And the public's going to get up in arms about it. Fortunate thing for the music business, music does not play on television. It doesn't play. I don't care what it is. It does not play on television. Music, you've got to be there. You got to feel it. You got to touch it. We've all watched it. We've all sat with the greatest stereo systems and everything else. But you know what? It doesn't play. It's not there. You're not there. It's the being there event that makes it work. And the question is,
I haven't done one show.
No.
What's the point?
Nothing. But when the shows come back, what are people going to do?
Well,
the screaming's going to start. People are going to want money back. Money's been sitting out for a year and a half on a lot of these shows. They're not going to let them do 100,000 people at Coachella. Never going to happen.
No. Right. But that's going to, about the shows that have been moved again and again, say the music hall shows, under 5,000 seats.
Those are safe.
I think those are going to be safe. Those bigger ones are going to be the ones where they're really elbow to elbow.
Danny, in Vegas, you're safe. In the music halls, you're safe because you can extend those acts for 2 days and if you have to, and the music halls will work with you. These arenas can't afford to.
The thing that in the world that I'm in right now, which is not so much in the arenas or the stadiums anymore, because it's just impossible financially to be involved in those dates and up against everybody the way that we are. But in the smaller halls, in the real music halls, the listening rooms, for the most part, who I'm doing business with these days are over 40, 50, even 60 years old.
That's right.
And huh?
That's right.
Right. And those are the people who are getting all the vaccinations, and those are the people that are masking up, and those are the people that are looking after themselves and not spouting off all the dumb crap that you're hearing as much as the others. And I think whether it's with a mask or not, it's certainly at first it will be. But I think end of the summer and early fall, we'll be having those shows back. And I don't anticipate being told to cut down the percentages or put seats in between. You know,
I'll tell you why I think they're going to do that to you, right or wrong. Unfortunately, the politics in this country are so screwed up. And unfortunately, what they're going to do is they're going to say, Danny, you had a show, somebody walked out with COVID because you didn't cut the show in half. It's going to be a political issue. It's not a physical reality health issue. I think it'll become a physical political issue where they may start out for the first 90 days or 6 months saying we want these houses cut in half. But you're fine.
Well, I don't think that's going to happen, but I'm going to have my immediate response, which is I think the guy didn't get it at the concert hall. I think he got it on that American Airlines plane where they're seating everybody next to each other, all over each other, just like the old days.
Yeah, but I came back from Florida on Delta and every other seat's empty.
But that was because that's all that bought the seats.
No, that's what Delta's doing.
Well, Delta's being nice. I'm in Maui and America isn't being nice. None of them.
Then you should come back on Delta or just stay with Shep and forget about it.
Okay. That'd be a good idea. Shep had his first dinner party in a year the other night.
Please give him my regards.
I will do. Have you talked to him lately?
No. But Shep and I've been friends with Shep since the beginning.
You should call him. He is in such great form.
I'll call him.
You know, he had a kid 10
Yeah, I do know. I know about that.
What an amazing little guy. I got my hands for Shep right here. I mean, I hope he gets to stay around a long time and see this kid. They're having such a blast together.
That's
awesome. Great.
Yeah.
So, Jeff, I have a question for you.
Yes.
So you talked about your relationships throughout your career with both the talent and the promoters and how you balance that out. When we look at today's landscape, you know, whether it's William Morris or CAA, what do you see as their philosophy? Is there any balance, or is it, you know, just, you know, no balance?
No.
Completely one-sided.
Yep. And I also, the commission structures have dropped tremendously because most of these guys, other than maybe a handful like Danny, are just going to Live Nation or AEG, making an overall deal. And the artist says, I'm not paying you 10% or 5%. I'm going to pay you $150,000, $200,000 flat. Forget it. You can't live on that. You cannot run a business on that. You can't run at 2.5%. If you got an act doing $1 million a night, you're okay. If you can get that. I know one particular manager, which Danny knows as well, that pays $2,500 a contract, period.
Wow.
And it doesn't matter because the truth is he could pay a commission because the act makes so much money, it makes no difference. It's all taxes.
Yeah.
But people don't know when to stop squeezing. Yeah. You know, I said to a manager one day, I was trying to sign an act. I said to him, you know, I'll tell you what, I'll do this for you. 10% on the first 2 million, 5% after that. And he said, why would I do that? I said, because your act can make an extra $500,000 a year. And the guy says to me, the minute I cut your commission, they're going to cut mine.
Yeah.
So what's happened is they all turn and squeeze. If the state of California did not demand that you use an agent to issue a contract, I guarantee you these managers would be booking the shows direct.
Yeah. Oh, there's no question.
New York, you don't need an agent.
No kidding.
No kidding.
Lou Wasserman.
And all of our contracts always came out of New York. I was the only guy that had a central contract department. Everybody else had agents issue the individual contracts. We had a central contract girl. So we knew where everything was all the time. We weren't running around looking at people's desks.
Hey, Jeff, what was the piece of yellow paper with the red print that you had on the contracts?
I guess that was left over from somebody doing something illegal. I don't know.
It said something about, please read all this carefully or the act will not perform.
Oh, did we say that?
That was yours.
Oh, that was fine. We also didn't return contracts signed until after the shows.
At least a month or two. At least a month or two. At least a month or two. You were talking before, Tim mentioned it when you went away for a second. He goes, it's interesting. He's talking about how the promoter has to be as close as the band. And I said, but see, Jeff's a great guy. He can say that. Then he hires Bill Elson and looks good for the rest of his life.
No, that's not what happened.
I'm teasing.
No, it's a good reason. I got it, and I'm going to answer it. Bill Elson was too buttoned down for his own good.
Oh yeah.
And Bill Elson did not have the kind of compassion he needed across the board in the business. He's a hell of an agent, hell of a good agent.
Hell of an agent.
Bill Elson stood at the US Festival with Steve Wozniak, with who's the guy that owned it? What's the guy?
Wozniak.
Woz, but
Jobs.
Woz was there, but who else? I'm trying to remember who else. Jobs was there.
Yeah.
And this African American came up to Bill Elson and said, "Man, who is you jiving?" He said, "Pardon me?" He said, "Man, who are you kidding?" It's like 110 degrees, right? Bill Elson is there in a suit and tie because Bill Elson believed that you're supposed to be a strict agent and you wear a suit and tie.
With vest. With
vest half the time, you're right. Good agent, hell of an agent. But he just got a little too hard. And, you know, he also, I mean, look, Marsha Vlasic started as a secretary for me. I met Marsha Vlasic when she was working for some other guy booking college days. She worked for me for years. I trained Marsha. Neil Young is her client today because I gave him to her. I gave all these clients to these guys. My theory was sign the clients, be there when they need you, give your agents the clients. Most people were scared an agent would leave and take the client. That very rarely happened to me. It happened, but not often.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's the way it went. I mean, I loved it when they tried to take Seger away from me. And I was in Charleston, South Carolina, and CAA had booked a tour. And then they'd gotten a call from Pudge Andrews that we got a problem. I wasn't even an agent anymore. You got to deal with Jeff Franklin on this because that's the way it is. So they did. And Bob gets on stage. He says, "This is called I Want a Plane Tour. My manager's here, and my agent for life is here."
That's awesome.
You know, we go back 50 years.
That's awesome.
So, you know, it changes. Life changes. But you've got to have relationships. I mean, I can pick up the phone to any of these guys today. I get a return call. I get anything I ask for.
So do we still get that? I mean, is the industry, are the relationships still there?
Mine or others?
I'm saying, like, you know, in the music business in general today.
I don't think so. Danny could tell you better than I could. I mean, I've been removed from it. The only thing I'm doing in the music business is I'm doing a lot of M&A publishing deals. I've signed a lot of music publishing companies, but I don't think they're there because it's too controlled by Live Nation AEG. So whoever that agent is, and if you let, I don't know how they're working, who's dealing with, let's say, Live Nation. It's pretty tough if you got 5 different agents in the same office dealing with Live Nation. I don't know what they do. I really don't know anymore. I used to know. I mean, if I go to Live Nation, I go to either Mike Rapino or Arthur Fogel or else If I can't get it done with one or two of them, I'm not doing it.
Right.
I mean, Arthur Fogel was a rookie working for Michael Cole. I taught most of these kids this business. They're not kids anymore, but they will tell you I did.
Did you see Arthur's movie?
I did.
No, I didn't see it.
It's called Who the Fuck is Arthur Fogel?
Oh, good. How was it?
Good. Yeah, it's a good documentary.
It was interesting. It was definitely interesting, but
Who the fuck was Michael Cole?
it was very decidedly low key. But that's how Arthur is.
That's how he is. Listen, there was a company called Brockham and a company called Winterland.
Yeah.
And they were the two merchandising companies. And when Bill Graham started Winterland, a big advance, that's where I made the first Kiss merchandising deal. A big advance was $10,000, $20,000, maybe $100,000 and a 10% royalty. Needless to say, things changed. Peter Lubin had Brockham. Peter Lubin got in trouble. He got Michael Cole to come in and finance it. Michael Cole didn't have the money. So what happened was they kept raising the prices, raising the advances. And you raise the advances, raising the royalties. So all of a sudden, the royalties went from 10% to 40%. Okay? You can't make any money in that business. There's no money in it. So what happened, it came to a point where I had a meeting in San Francisco representing Michael Cole and Brockham, Del Ferrano and Winterland. And we were going to start a third company. That was the theory. Michael would keep his current clients, Del would keep his current clients, and all new clients would go into this third company. And Winterland would take care of all the printing and all that parts of it. We get this thing done. We shake hands on what the deal is going to be. We agree on the deal. And we get a call the next morning from Del. That call was, I got to see you. Okay. I'm representing both of them. I said, what is it? He said, I can't do this deal. I said, why can't you do this deal? He's going to put you out of business otherwise. He said, I can't do this deal. He's going to go out of business. He'll never be able to keep up the cash flow. And I looked at him. I said, Del, let me explain something to you. What he's going to do is raise the prices of what he's giving people. He can't do that. I said, he has to do it. Why does he have to do it? You take from Peter to pay Paul, and you keep going around in a circle. And what's going to happen is, in the end of the day, either he's going to go broke or he's going to make a ton of money. So we go to the airport, TWA flight back to New York, me and Michael. These are the days you can smoke on a plane. Michael's smoking a cigarette. He looks at me at 3 a.m. He says, I'm really pissed off about this. I'm mostly pissed off because he didn't get me on the golf course I wanted to get on. He said, but I'm going to put the son of a bitch out of business. Michael went back to Toronto and 6 weeks later announced Molson as his partner and his checkbook.
Wow.
That's a true story.
Wow.
Funny how that works, huh?
So Otto, you've put countless deals together in your career.
Yes.
What's the deal you're most proud of?
My 2 children.
Okay, that's awesome. That's great.
That I'm most proud of?
Yep.
Probably selling Casablanca 3 times to the same buyer.
How did that happen?
Oh my God. Bad dog.
You've never heard this stuff, have you?
You're a bad dog.
3 times, not once. 3 times they bought the same damn company. What happened was we sold them the company, and we had originally sold to Universal, but we had an issue that we walked out in 24 hours. We never made the deal. And they bought it, and everything started flying through the ceiling. Company was already hot with Kiss and Donna Summers and all this. But you got to be careful when you make a deal. I don't care how big your company is. And the first year, we declared a $20 million profit. $10 million for them, because we still owned half of it, and $10 million for us. Right? Fair enough?
Yeah.
Hologram didn't see it that way.
Kind of like our concert deals, half and half.
Yeah, well, they didn't like it. They said, you can't do this. You guys lost money. We said, no, we didn't. I said, well, and I'm the one, whenever there's a big problem, I'm the one who had to go deal with it. Peter Gruber wasn't dealing with it. Neil Bogart wasn't dealing with it. I had to go talk to these people. The contract in paragraph XYZ said, write everything off. Zero out the books. So we wrote everything off. So effectively, even though Donna Summers owed you $2 million, come January, when she sold a record, that was all profit. So there was a Donna Summers record. There was a George Clinton record. The Goose came out. I managed George when that came out. There was a Kiss album. There was, there was Billy Ocean. There was the Village People. So what happened was we were making money and we were following the contract. So again, we had to sell it to them. They had to renegotiate the deal with us, which cost them more than $10 million to buy it again.
They didn't read the contract the first time?
It's just, they read it. They did it. Don't ask me. This was the accounting. Then what happened is that a guy, I can't remember his name. He was an agent at ICM. He was running Columbia Pictures, and he got caught for stealing money from Columbia or something. And they got very worried about our picture deal. We had made The Deep at Columbia. And they decided that they wanted us to spin off the film company. They wanted two separate companies. Okay. Well, thanks, guys. No. How much? That was the second time they bought it. And the third time they bought it is when they bought out the last part.
That's awesome.
So, that was done. But, Robert Stigwood had the best one of all. He heard about all this. He declared a dividend, took a big check, sent a check to Polygram in Holland by regular mail. They call him up 2 weeks later, said, Robert, what's this check? He said, we had a board meeting. We declared a profit. Robert, we lost money. How could you do this? What are you talking about? You got to put this money back. He said, we had a board meeting. You guys didn't get a letter for the board meeting? Regular mail. He's Holland, 2 weeks. He said, I can't put the money back. They said, what do you mean you can't put the money back? Well, I bought Onassis's boat.
Oh, man.
He did, right?
Yeah. This is true stuff.
That's crazy.
There's not a lot of people that know this stuff. I mean, I know so much stuff. It's not even, this is just tipsy stuff.
So,
tip of the iceberg.
Did you start putting the book together yet, or the movie deal?
Nope.
Not going to do it?
Nope. Do I know why?
Yeah.
Yes.
I did a television series in South Africa with Catherine Bach and Robert Mitchum. And Robert Mitchum was in Toronto. And we'd shoot Robert Mitchum twice a year for the 26 episodes. They were insert pieces, 3-minute insert pieces. And the second year, I didn't get there when Mitchum was there. I always had to be there when he was shooting.
Robert Mitchum story.
So I show up, and I walk in the bar on a Sunday, and Mitchum's sitting at the bar drinking, which was nothing new. He was supposed to have left on Saturday. And I'm going, oh, crap. So I walk up and says, Mitch, you got my message. I got here. We're going to have dinner, right? He said, great to see you, Jeff. Sure, have a drink. So we're out to dinner. Me and Mitchum, we had a caretaker with him all the time to keep him semi-sober. He was sober as could be on the set, boy. You never work with people like this. He could drink all night and be there in the morning. Doesn't miss a take. So Mitchum, this German I'm with, because I was helping them with the TV deal they had to do to keep a license, says, Mr. Mitchum, we're doing a book. Marlene Dietrich, tell us some stories. And Mitchum goes on, takes another drink. Says, yeah, she's a great cook. He's not telling you shit. So then the guy says, Mr. Mitchum, how long have you been married? He says, 54 years. He says, it's got to be one of the longest marriages in the history of Hollywood. He said, yep, gone 45. So now the guy says to me, Mr. Mitchum, you should do a book. And Mitchum looked at me and he said, I've been offered $10 million to do a book. I can't do a book. Why can't you do a book? Because to do a book, you have to fuck over your friends. And there's not enough in this world that's worth it to me.
Yeah.
And that was the end of the story.
That's great.
I mean, the stuff I could put in the book.
Yeah, but that's not, there's so much other stuff that you don't have to burn people with.
It's not about burning.
I just wanted to have some text in my book to put around all the pictures because I like the pictures. I left out everything, because it's like, you don't want to tell stuff out of school. I mean, you were there for a reason when you were in a deal, and it wasn't to recount it to the public later. That's just how I feel.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I'm not knocking it. I just, I can't read or write, so that's the problem.
That is a problem.
I gotta read or write.
Well, that just goes to show you, boys and girls, to become a king in this business, you don't have to learn how to read or write.
That's correct.
I think Jeff, Tim, I don't know about you. I think you probably got a little further in school than I did or Jeff did, but I didn't go to college. I barely finished high school, and the music business accepts people like us.
The only reason I went to college, which I didn't finish, I had 16 hours to go. The only reason I went, I would go a semester and quit, go and quit, and go and quit, was to stay out of a place called Vietnam.
I was right at the end of that.
And that was the only reason that I was in school. I didn't want to be in school. That's not who I was. I like booking bands.
Ditto.
And that's what happened. And there was a rich guy in Dayton, Ohio, who said to me, this book and band business, you'll never make a living. I said, thank you very much. And once we hit it big, I just said on the headline for the trade one day, never talk to the guy again.
I'd like to continue this. Can I take a quick break and can we reconvene?
What are you gonna do?
Well, I have my guests here that are trying, I think, to leave.
Do you want to reconvene on a different day?
Yeah, let's do it tomorrow. What's tomorrow? Tuesday? I can't do it tomorrow. I can do it Wednesday.
What did you say?
Wednesday's good for me.
Is Wednesday
or you know
good?
what? Actually, I got a meeting. I can do it tomorrow about the same time if you want.
Well, I'm leaving. I'm in Maui. I'm leaving here tomorrow morning or around noon or 1.
Then let's do it Wednesday or Thursday. I'm around all week. I just got back to
because I think I got a couple more things I want to talk about, but I don't want to rush. And Jeff, it's so good to see you and have this chat after so long. It's great, Tim. So we kind of keep track of each other on social media, but other than that, we don't get to sit around and bullshit like this, and I'm loving it.
Well, I feel I feel grateful to be able to be a fly on the wall with you guys.
A fly on the wall.
Niagara Falls.
Niagara Falls.
Slowly I turn.
Stop.
A lot of memories here, boy. They're coming back. It's been a long time. And I got to tell you, there's very few people I would do this for.
And it's fun, right? I mean, I love hearing your stories. You got the best, and no better attitude.
You know what?
Still,
I've had 4 heart attacks. I've had cancer 4 times. I feel better than ever. I don't give a shit. When people say, "Oh, I'm so sorry," I look at them and say, "What are you sorry about? I'm alive. What's your problem?"
You're here.
You're the best. You're inspiration.
I mean, today I have my favorite client today, and then I'll let you. I do have a client today. It's my godson. And this is where you find out about this business. I'm walking out of the Sunset Marquee about 5 years ago. And I run in to my godson. I hadn't seen him 5 years. And he sees me, throws his arm around me. He's as big as a horse. He starts telling me all his woes. He starts crying a little bit. He was going into a meeting, and he's a big writer, big songwriter. And his name is Evan Bogart. It's Neil's son.
No kidding.
Yeah. And his mother and I love Joyce, but you get remarried and there's too many memories, I assume, about Neil when you see me around. We went through too much together. So she and I aren't very close. So Evan tells me what he was doing. And he tells me he's getting X amount of dollars. He's getting divorced. I said, don't do that. And he said, but I said, don't do it. We go out to dinner. He calls one of his brothers in between. He said, don't you listen to anybody but Uncle Jeff. If he's willing to do that, you're a fool. So we turned minimal hundreds of thousands of dollars into multi millions, all in 6 weeks. Then he had another catalog, publishing catalog, which was worth Y. We probably sold it for Z. He doesn't, I mean, he's now, the rest of his life never has to look back. But it was probably one of the most important things in my life. So I went out to dinner with his mother, out to lunch with her one day at Hillcrest, where I don't exactly fit in. And she says to me, I want to thank you. I said, for what? She said, for everything you've done for Evan, because Neil's looking down on you, just like you would have looked down on our
Good
kids.
for you.
And, you know, to me, it said, I'm in. So you can look at whatever you want. It's you know, I do deals for people. I could give a shit if I never see them again.
Well, between phone calls, let's think about, you know, the book deal for this one.
Whatever. Just let me know when you want to. Let me know whenever you want to talk. I'm around. I'm going to be here for the next 4 or 6 weeks, and I'm going back to Ponte Vedra. I found a little piece of heaven.
Where at?
Ponte Vedra, Florida.
Oh, yeah.
Never hear of it?
Ponte Vedra?
Yeah.
Jeff, did you ever hear of Ponte Vedra, Florida? Yes, of course. Do you love it? Do you know it? You been there? Never played it.
There's a course there called Sawgrass.
Sawgrass.
That's where the players were this week.
Okay.
I was sitting on the 17th hole. I belong to Sawgrass, TPC.
Oh, nice.
Killing me.
I live on the ocean. I walk 2 miles. Sawgrass Country Club is 2 miles, and TPC course is 2.5 miles from my house. There's nobody there. There's 14 golf courses. It goes down to 40 in the winter, 60 in the day, 85, 90, nobody on the beach. It's like a little piece of heaven.
Well,
So,
speaking of,
so Danny, let me know when you want to do this. Just send me a text or an email. We'll figure it out.
before we take off, I'm going to
Tim, was nice meeting you.
Jeff, it was an honor.
where we are.
Oh, there you go.
Danny, I got a question. Danny, where'd he go?
He's showing us honor.
Right here.
Oh, I got it. Danny,
I'm
if you Danny,
right
did you
here.
watch the players this weekend? Did
No.
you watch a players tournament?
I couldn't. No, I didn't. My TV. I'm in this place here, and the TV wasn't working. Why?
Instead of just saying no, I didn't, he's going to come up with an excuse. But it doesn't matter.
No, and I probably wouldn't have this weekend. But why?
Well, we were sitting. The 17th hole at the players is one that's surrounded by water. The par 3 that nobody can get on, or they get on and it rolls off. We were sitting about from the pin about 150 yards, right behind the pin. I followed Lee Westwood around, him and Shambo, standing right on the green. They only let 20,000 people in the place because of COVID. And you walk around and you're going, this is like beyond anything you've ever seen. It's supposed to be, it's the most amazing course there is because it's the PGA test course. They own it. They do everything to it. They test it. And it's just what they learn their water system. It was beyond in perfect shape. It's Ponte Vedra.
I want to go play there.
No problem.
I'm just today and the last couple of days been hitting balls here out in front. My knee is now 10 weeks old, the new knee, and it's perfect. It's just
ready for any course now.
I'm ready.
My game is I'm a 90, 95.
Yeah.
But a friend of mine forced me to go to TPC and get fitted. I'm hitting every single club anywhere from 20 to 40 yards further.
What'd you get? What kind of clubs?
I ended up with Callaway. It's not the club. What they do is they give you a 7 basically to work off of. You hit like 150 balls, and then they give you a TaylorMade, a Ping, a Callaway, a Cobra. They give you 5, 6 different clubs to hit and see which one you hit the furthest consistently. The heads are different and the shafts are different.
Sure.
And I was hitting, surprisingly, the Callaways better.
Well,
Nice.
I love those.
A friend of mine bought a shaft the other day for $800. He was told he'd get an extra 30 yards off of. Don't ask me. That's how stupid it is.
Is it a placebo or is it real, babe?
It's a placebo with Viagra in it.
There you go.
All right. Well, we'll set up another time. Wednesday or Thursday? Thursday?
Whenever you want. I don't give a shit.
Okay.
I'm around.
Okay.
Thursday morning. Let's see. Yeah, I can do it Thursday afternoon. I have tea time in the morning. I'm free in the afternoon.
Tim, let's get our times together for the week because I got a couple of things that we need to do, and I want to finish this with Jeff. It's so good. I think this is going to make a great show.
Whatever you want, just call me.
Thank you, Jeff. Great meeting you.
Tim, it's been fun.
Thank you.
Danny, you need a haircut. Danny, you need a haircut. Will you save your hair so I can have it for implants?
Is it time? I'll cut it off and send it over.
I mean, I had it halfway down my back when I got it cut in Florida.
Did you really?
Bald on top and halfway down my back. Yeah, that's it. There's still a little on top.
You need the thing up here, the little twist.
That's what I need.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can buy one of those hats, one of those like Rod Stewart hats that look like that.
I'll cut it when I get a show.
Goodbye.
Talk to you later. Tim,
That might be a while.
See you guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
See you guys.
All Excess with Danny Zalesko and Tim Richards.